Coach, good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good morning.
Thanks so much for joining us. What do you think was the reason Oklahoma simply had no answer for stopping Georgia's ground attack?
I'll tell you, you got to give Georgia a lot of credit. I thought the offensive line did a good job, and, of course, those backs. We all familiar with the backs, how hard they run. But I'll tell you, the other guy that to me deserves a lot of credit is Jake Fromm, the freshman. He made a couple of checks yesterday. I thought the offensive coordinator, Coach Chaney, and Jake Fromm did a good job of getting them out of a bad play, getting them into a better play, and a couple of those were long runs. And I tell you, it's just great study for a freshman. Doesn't act like a freshman. And, of course, you got to give it to Georgia's defense. I thought the third quarter they revved it up a notch now. They went to another level in the third quarter.
Did you think that Lincoln Riley got too conservative late in that game and in overtime?
You know what? I was just it was curious to me. It seems like things were a little bit different when they did get in overtime. You saw a couple of runs. Okay, this is a little bit different because, you know, with Baker Mayfield, it's always been this gunslinger that can make it happen, that it's always, so he's so elusive. He makes things happen. You just were expecting a little bit more as far as that. But, again, I know hindsight's 20/20. I'm sure he didn't call those plays thinking it's just going to be a 1-yard run. But it was curious to me why he went that direction.
Houston Nutt joins us here on the show. So when we look at this matchup after Alabama beat Clemson, were you surprised that Alabama had that little trouble last night with the Tigers?
I was just a little bit. I thought that Clemson would have a few more explosive plays, but I'll tell you what, the mindset of Alabama, you could just tell by listening to the players after the game when they used the words, we felt disrespected. We felt like people didn't think we belonged in the playoffs. You know, you could tell Coach Saban used all those things behind closed doors because everybody was singing in harmony, especially all the players after the game. The defense was razor sharp. You know, Coach Saban used the word ferocious. I'm going to add also violent and all some other words too because there's just nowhere to go. And how about the third quarter, guys, where you think, okay, this is what Clemson needed. Jalen Hurts has a fumble, and on the exchange, they get the ball at the plus 19 going in. Nothing but a field goal. So it just shows the defense was just so on point, and they look so quick and so fast.
What do you think about this matchup between Alabama and Georgia? Obviously, we didn't see this in the regular season nor in the SEC championship game. What's your thumbnail on that matchup?
It's going to be a good one. There's no doubt about it. Now, I do think there's something, too, when you use that much emotion. You're out in California. It's like playing UCLA, USC. You're out there, and then now you got to travel back. They're just now getting back, most likely. I think that is a disadvantage. I know they're young. I get it and all that. They're going to get in the whirlpool and all those things. But I just think Kirby will have to manage that because there's a lot of energy spent, and they know they're down to 60 minutes for a national title where, Alabama didn't have to go too far. So I think that's an advantage to Alabama. But, no, this is going to be a great one. I mean, both teams very, very good, very talented on both sides of the ball. But I just feel like Alabama has the edge.
Houston Nutt, CBS Sports college football analyst, joining us here on the show. Did you think that last night Clemson's offense, that was more what Clemson was unable to do, basically losing Deshaun Watson, obviously, to the NFL? Kelly Bryant just couldn't really match what Deshaun Watson did, or was that just a better Alabama defensive effort than we saw in the last two championship games against Clemson?
Yeah, I think this was a different Clemson team. When you look at Deshaun Watson and his group, you had a 1,000-yard back in Wayne Gallman. You had a receiver like Williams. And Deshaun could really make some throws down the field. Well, if you look at the game film again, you'd see the corners and safeties are sitting on top of the receivers. There was no backpedaling. There was no running out of there. There wasn't their respect factor there as far as getting the ball down the field. They were sitting on top of these routes. And so they challenged them so hard you didn't see much separation. So this is much different. If you notice also that Kelly Bryant's more of a runner, probably a better runner, a bigger guy and a good runner. But, again, with the defense the way that they were playing, hey, there wasn't any running room, guys. It was hard to make first downs. I just think it's a little different team. Kelly Bryant doesn't throw the ball as good as Deshaun Watson, and the defense of Alabama was just smothering the running game altogether.
Outside of Michigan's collapse against South Carolina in the Outback Bowl, the Big Ten had an amazing bowl season. Do you subscribe to the theory that if you have a great bowl season, that means you're the best conference? In other words, did you feel like the Big Ten was the best conference in America, even if it didn't have a team in the playoff?
I do. There is something about when you win your bowl game. There's no question about it. But also, I put a little asterisk by it because, remember, 30 days to get ready for one team, that's one thing. But now when you go back to back to back in a very difficult conference, I think that's really the mindset. That's why I believe in conference champions. When you win the championship of conference, you really should be in the playoff. But that's a whole other subject. But to answer your question, I don't know if you can always go by that. But I tell you what, at the end of the year, the bottom line is if you do win your bowl game, you got to say, hey, look, we're one of the top conferences, if not the top.
So UCF had an amazing season, undefeated, will be ranked obviously in the top 10. I don't know where they'll end up being ranked after all is said and done, but beating Auburn yesterday is a pretty impressive way to put an exclamation point on that season. Did you feel like that was a legitimate wow win, or did you doubt about what maybe Auburn's motivation was since they didn't make the playoff and because they lost their chance at the playoff in the SEC title game?
Yeah, I got a little bit of both, and I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I do believe this. The mindset of Auburn, I was questioning that all the way through. When you fall at the end and you don't win, and now your bowl game doesn't have that, oh, okay, who we playing? Well, Central Florida. Well, as players, it's easy to say, okay, let's get geared up now. They're 12-0. And it's easy as a player at Auburn to say, nah, we're not really playing Ohio State. We're not playing the big boys, so we're just going to roll our helmets out there. And that's what happened. It's that mindset. But give University of Central Florida a lot of credit, man. I tell you what a quarterback. Mackenzie Milton is outstanding. This guy ran for 116 yards against a very good Auburn defense. I give UCF and Scott Frost, I give him all the credit in the world. I really do. I think they're outstanding. But, again, looking back on the other side, I've been there before. When your team's mindset's not all there, man, it's hard to play and hard to win.
What'd you think about Scott Frost taking the Nebraska job but not leaving the program until after yesterday's bowl game?
I've never seen a smoother transition from teams, leaving one school and going to the other. I've never seen anything like it, where they just embrace this guy. Scott Frost has done a good job. You can tell the love, the relationship he has with his players, administration, because a lot of schools would say, hey, why don't you just go on down the line? Your mind's something else. You're on your next job. But it wasn't the case. And I've never seen such a smooth transition. I got to give a lot of credit. The way they put the exclamation point on this season, 13-0, it's going to be hard to beat.
Before I let you go, Coach, around here it's a Trash Tuesday, so we take out the trash. Anything bugging you that you want to trash?
I tell you what, I've got one thing. When all the relatives and all the friends come to it was our house this year for Christmas. All I asked, if they use the video, if they use the TV screen and they use they got the video and they get the Coca-Colas, the popcorn. All I ask is just a little put things up. I don't mind you using, but please put them up. Take them to the dishwasher. Oh, help us out a little bit.
You've been trashed.
When they go to the refrigerator, we let you go use all the facilities. Great. But come on, help out a little bit.
I love it. I know exactly where you're coming from because I hosted the New Year's Eve party. I said the same thing. Clean up after yourselves, guys.
Yes, you get it. You know what I'm talking about.
I'm not here to be your maid.
That's right. That's it.
Houston Nutt, 3-time SEC Coach of the Year, member of the CBS Sports Network and College Football Analysis. Man, Coach, it was so great catching up with you in 2017. Hopefully we'll do it more again in 2018, man. Thank you again.